Welcome to the first episode of the Trump Report Card, where we grade the Trump administration's foreign policy. In this episode, we will be grading stories about the war in Ukraine. The first story covers the February 28 visit to the Oval Office by Ukrainian President Zelensky.
I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful
to
come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting?
We gave this a grade of A-. Following the Oval Office visit, this is what President Trump had to say.
We had a meeting today, as you know, with President Zelensky, and I would say it didn't work out exactly great. From his standpoint, I think he very much overplayed his hand. We're looking for peace. We're not looking for somebody that's going to sign up a strong power and then not make peace because they feel emboldened, and that's what I saw happening. I'm looking for peace. We're not looking to go into a 10-year war and play games. We want peace. And it was just my impression that if we do that, if we sign up, he's looking for something that I'm not looking for. He's looking to go on and fight. We're looking to end the death. 2,000 people died this week. Soldiers, more than that, but 2,000 approximately people died this week. Young Ukrainians and Russians. And somebody would say, why do you care about Ukraine and Russian soldiers? I care about them. I care about everybody. And we're not doing that. Now, if we don't do anything, he's going to have to make peace, but he's dealing with a very weak set of cards. If we sign, he's dealing with a very strong set of cards, and then he doesn't want to make peace. So that's where we are. It's very simple. I'm not looking to get into anything protracted. I want immediate peace. President Putin is going to want to make, and he wants to end it. And you saw what I saw today. This is a man that wants to get us signed up and keep fighting, and we're not doing that. Not for this country.
This got a grade of A-. The next story comes from Reuters on February 26. It read, Trump confirms Zelensky visit to sign Ukraine minerals deal. Under the deal, which Ukraine's prime minister has called preliminary, Kyiv would hand some revenue from its mineral resources to a fund jointly controlled by the U.S. We gave this a grade of D. On February 24, BBC said, U.S. sides with Russia in UN resolutions on Ukraine on 2 occasions. First, the U.S. opposed a European-drafted resolution condemning Moscow's actions, voting the same way as Russia, and countries including North Korea and Belarus. Then, the U.S. drafted a resolution at the UN Security Council which called for an end to the conflict, but contained no criticism of Russia. We gave this a grade of A. Antiwar.com ran this story on the same day. Waltz rules out Ukraine joining NATO after Zelensky offer. I do not see the United States having Ukraine enter into NATO and then having United States troops essentially obligated, immediately, in terms of Article 5, or coming to have U.S. troops coming directly in for the defense of Ukraine, said U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. This got a grade of A-. Marco Rubio, Zelensky's trying to hustle us. Trump says Ukraine should make peace with Russia. Increasing trust, Putin hails Russia-US talks in Riyadh. Marco Rubio, Zelensky's trying to hustle us.
I was personally very upset because we had a conversation with President Zelensky, the Vice President and I, the three of us, and we discussed this issue about the mineral rights. And we explained to them, look, we want to be in a joint venture with you, not because we're trying to steal from your country, but because we think that's actually a security guarantee. If we're your partner in an important economic endeavor, we get to get paid back some of the money the taxpayers have given, close to $200 billion. And it also, now we have a vested interest in the security of Ukraine. And he said, sure, we want to do this deal. It makes all the sense in the world. The only thing is I need to run it through my legislative process. They have to approve it. I read 2 days later that Zelensky's out there saying, I rejected the deal. I told him no way that we're not doing that. Well, that's not what happened in that meeting. And not someone who's out there putting the sort of counter messaging to try to, hustle us in that regard. That's not going to be productive.
We gave this a grade of B+.
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace. I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
We gave this a grade of B+.
Overall, as reported to me, it was a very friendly atmosphere. As I was told by our participants on the United States side, there were very different people who were open to the negotiation process without any prejudice, without any condemnation of what had been done in the past. In any case, in bilateral contacts there was nothing of this, but they were set up for joint work. The goal and subject of our negotiations was to restore Russian-American relations. Somebody wants to be an intermediary between Russia and the United States. Probably this is an excessive demand. And the most important thing here in solving the most pressing issues, including the Ukrainian settlement, is that without increasing the level of trust between Russia and the United States, it is impossible to solve many issues, including the Ukrainian crisis.
We gave this a grade of B+. The next 5 stories are from February 13th through the 20th. Trump appears to blame Ukraine wanting to join NATO for Russia's invasion. A-. Trump says Ukraine should have never started war with Russia. B+. Trump says Russia has the cards in Ukraine peace negotiations. B+. Russia and US agree to work towards improving ties and ending the Ukraine conflict. A-. And finally, Trump dubs Zelensky a dictator without elections. We gave this a grade of B+. In this February 11th video, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was asked about sending U.S. troops into Ukraine.
President Biden vowed against sending U.S. troops into Ukraine. Would you be open to sending U.S. troops into Ukraine to track weapons shipments?
We are not sending U.S. troops to Ukraine.
We gave this a grade of A-. On January 23rd, the Hindustan Times reported, Trump says he wants to work with China and Russia on denuclearization.
We'd like to see denuclearization. In fact, with President Putin prior to an election result, which was frankly ridiculous, we were talking about denuclearization of our two countries, and China would have come along. China has a much smaller, right now, nuclear armament. I will tell you that President Putin really liked the idea of cutting way back on nuclear.
We gave this a grade of B. On the same day, Global News reported, Trump and Putin say they're ready to talk Russia-Ukraine ceasefire.
Important, I really would like to be able to meet with President Putin soon and get that war ended. And that's not from the standpoint of economy or anything else. It's from the standpoint of millions of lives are being wasted. Beautiful young people are being shot in the battlefield. You know, the bullet, very flat land, as I said, and the bullet goes, there's no hiding. And a bullet, the only thing going to stop the bullet is a human body. And you have to see, I've seen pictures of what's taken place. It's a carnage, and we really have to stop that war. That war is horrible.
Firstly, I want to say that Russia has never refused to have contacts with the US administration. And it's not our fault that the previous administration refused these contacts. With the current President of the United States, I have always had business, exclusively business, but at the same time, pragmatic and trustful relations. I can't disagree with him that if he was president, if his victory was not stolen in 2020, then maybe there would not be the crisis in Ukraine that arose in 2022. We have always said, I want to emphasize this again, we are ready for these negotiations on the Ukrainian issue. But there are also issues that require special attention. For example, as you know, the current head of the regime in Kiev, when he was still a fairly legitimate head of state, issued a decree banning negotiations. How can negotiations now be resumed? If they are banned.
We gave this a grade of B. And finally, on January 22nd, the Independent headline read, "On first day in office, Trump warns Putin, says he's destroying Russia."
He's told me he wants to make a deal. Zelensky wants to make a deal. I don't know if Putin does. He might not. I don't know. He should make a deal. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. I think Russia's going to be in big trouble. You take a look at their economy, you take a look at the inflation in Russia. So I would hope, I got along with him great, and you know, I would hope he wants to make a deal.
Mr. President, are you keeping U.S. sanctions on Russia until he makes a deal?
Well, sanctions or tariffs. I think the word tariff is much better because it keeps your dollar stronger.
We gave this a grade of C-. So, the average grade of the 17 stories in this episode was a B+. We hope you enjoyed watching this episode of the Trump Report Card. You may also be interested in episode 2, where we graded stories about the Trump administration's involvement in the war between Israel and Palestine. Future shows include episode 3, which will grade stories about the US war on the Houthis in Yemen. And episode 4, which will grade stories about Iran, Somalia, the USAID, Venezuela, Syria, and more. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next time.